Your heart just stopped. Not slowing down, not stuttering, stopped. And here's the thing nobody tells you. Your body has no idea yet. For the first 10 seconds, nothing changes. Your blood is still warm, your cells are still running, your brain is still firing on whatever oxygen is left in the vessels. You are technically dead, but biologically, something very different is happening. Your body is preparing for a fight it doesn't know it's already lost. This is the 4 minutes nobody talks about. Imagine this. Your heart has stopped. Doctors are working around you. Inside your skull, a storm of electrical activity has just begun. Let's start with second 0. The moment your heart stops, your blood pressure drops to 0 instantly. The 5 liters of blood that were moving through you a moment ago are now sitting still. No pump, no flow, no delivery. But your brain, the most oxygen-hungry organ in your entire body, is still burning through its last reserves. For roughly 10 seconds, your neurons are still firing. Your thoughts, whatever they were, are still happening. You are still, in every meaningful sense, you.
Then the lights start going out. Around 10 seconds in, the cerebral cortex, the part of your brain responsible for conscious thought, begins to shut down. This is the moment most people lose consciousness. Your eyes stop processing. Your ears stop registering. From the outside, you look gone. But from the inside, something else entirely might be beginning. In 2023, a neuroscientist named Jimo Borjigin at the University of Michigan published findings that nobody in the scientific community was prepared for. Her team monitored 4 comatose patients the moment they were taken off life support. They expected a slow fade, brain activity winding down like a dying engine. That's not what happened. In 2 of the 4 patients, within seconds of oxygen loss, the brain surged, a massive spike of gamma wave activity, organized, structured, exploding across the brain in a pattern that looked less like a shutdown and more like a sudden awakening. Gamma waves, the exact same waves associated with heightened awareness, memory retrieval, and conscious experience. Borjigin's own words about what she saw were blunt. She called it crazy high.
The surge was concentrated in a region called the temporoparietal occipital junction, a part of the brain that previous research has directly connected to out-of-body experiences and visual processing, which means the dying brain may briefly produce an unusually organized burst of activity, so unexpected that researchers are still trying to understand what it means. But here's the important part. A burst of brain activity doesn't automatically tell us what consciousness is experiencing. Scientists can measure electricity. They cannot directly measure a person's subjective experience. That's where the mystery begins. Now let's go deeper into the body, because while your brain is doing something extraordinary, the rest of you is beginning a completely different process. At 30 seconds, your cells notice. All 37 trillion of them. Without oxygen delivery, your cells start switching from aerobic respiration to anaerobic respiration, the backup system. It produces energy, but it also produces lactic acid as a byproduct. That acid begins building up inside your tissues immediately. And this is the moment the clock truly starts ticking. Your muscles, no longer receiving signals from a functioning brain, go completely slack. Your jaw drops. Your eyelids lose tension. Your pupils dilate and fix in place because the tiny muscles that control them have simply stopped receiving instructions. Your body is relaxing in a way it has never relaxed before. But at the cellular level, the opposite is happening. Your cells are not relaxing, they are panicking. Each cell in your body has mitochondria, power generators. When oxygen stops arriving, those generators start failing one by one. The cellular membrane, the wall that holds everything inside the cell together, begins to weaken. Enzymes that are normally contained safely behind those membranes start to leak. This is the very beginning of autolysis, self-digestion, your own body beginning to break itself down from the inside. But here's what matters. At 1 minute, this process has barely started. Most of your cells are still structurally intact, still whole, still waiting.
And brain cells, the most critical cells in your body, can survive without oxygen for 4 to 6 minutes before permanent damage sets in, which means at the 60-second mark, you are in a kind of biological limbo that medicine barely has language for. Not alive in any traditional sense, but not gone in any irreversible one either. Your body is waiting.
Imagine this. 1 minute has passed. Your heart is still. The room around you is chaos. But inside your brain, something organized is happening. Something science is only beginning to understand. Now here is where the science meets something much harder to explain. For decades, people who have been brought back from clinical death have described experiences that fit almost perfectly with what the brain surge data suggests. Dr. Sam Parnia, a resuscitation researcher at New York University, has spent over 20 years studying consciousness during cardiac arrest. His AWARE studies, the largest of their kind, examined hundreds of cardiac arrest survivors across 25 hospitals. Think about that number for a moment. Hundreds of people, clinically dead, then brought back. In the most recent published findings, roughly 40% of survivors reported some form of conscious perception during the time they were clinically dead. Around 20% described what researchers now call a recalled experience of death, structured thoughts, clear awareness, organized memories, and approximately 3% reported full visual and auditory perception while their hearts were not beating. They could see, they could hear, while the people standing over them saw nothing but a body with no pulse. One of the most consistent elements across survivor accounts, bright light, a feeling of floating, and then the life review. You've probably heard the phrase, your life flashes before your eyes. Most people assume that means the highlights, your biggest achievements, your most important days. But people who have actually experienced it say that's not what happens at all. It's not the milestones. Your brain isn't replaying the most important moments. It's replaying the moments that quietly became your life. It's sitting at your kitchen table on a random morning. It's the specific way afternoon light came through a window in a house you haven't thought about in years. It's a stranger's face you saw once on a bus and never thought about again. Small, ordinary, completely unremarkable moments that your conscious mind never considered worth keeping, but your brain kept them. All of them. One often cited case describes a man recalling details from a place he had visited as an infant, a specific staircase, a specific room. Stories like this remain controversial, but they continue to fuel debate about how much information the human brain may store without conscious awareness. Are all of your memories still in there? Every single one? Every unremarkable Tuesday? Every face you passed on the street? Every moment you lived but never consciously recorded? We don't know. But the data suggests something is happening in those final minutes that goes far beyond a simple shutdown.
For many people who were successfully resuscitated, the experience was described as unexpectedly peaceful rather than terrifying. One of the most consistent elements across survivor accounts is this: they did not feel alone. Most describe a presence, sometimes a person they recognize, a parent, a grandparent, someone who felt familiar and safe. Whether this is the brain constructing a final hallucination of comfort, or whether it reveals something we don't yet understand, scientists still debate. But what the data consistently shows is this: the experience was not what they feared it would be. Imagine this: 3 minutes. Your cells are beginning to reach their limit, and yet survivor after survivor describes not darkness, not pain, but something they struggle to put into words. Now back to the body, because the clock is still running. At 4 minutes, the window is closing. Brain cells that have been holding on without oxygen are beginning to reach their limit. Permanent damage starts setting in at the cellular level. The lactic acid buildup is now significant. The enzyme leakage inside your cells is accelerating. The structural integrity of your tissues is beginning to break down in ways that cannot be fully reversed, even if blood flow is restored. This is the line. On one side of it, resuscitation is possible. People come back across this line every single day in hospitals around the world. Their hearts restart, their brains recover, recover. They open their eyes, and many of them come back changed in ways that are difficult to explain and impossible to forget. The people who come back don't come back talking about what they achieved. They come back talking about who they loved. They come back wanting less of everything they spent their lives chasing and more of the moments they never thought to pay attention to. Some researchers believe consciousness may briefly become unusually vivid during cardiac arrest. Others argue this is simply the brain's final response to oxygen loss. At this moment, science cannot say for certain. The 4 minutes after your heart stops are far more complex than scientists once believed. Whether they represent the final activity of a dying brain or something we don't yet understand remains one of neuroscience's greatest unanswered questions.
What we do know is this: your body does not go quietly. It fights. Every cell fights. Your brain, rather than fading, surges with more organized electrical activity than most waking moments of your life. And the people who come back consistently across cultures, across languages, across every background imaginable, describe not an ending, but something else entirely. Maybe that's what those final 4 minutes are really showing us. Not that death is extraordinary, but that life always was. Every ordinary Tuesday, every quiet afternoon, every face you forgot, your brain never did.